Let's take a look at some charts on Litecoin from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So Litecoin is a proof of work coin that uses the script consensus algorithm along with Doge, and I believe that's it. Maybe some obscure zombie dead coin other than that, but it's pretty much just LTC and Doge. So they're merge mined, which means they're mined at the same time, basically to ensure network security for Doge. If we look at price action since the halving on August 2019, price has not exactly had any significant bullish rallies above the price of the halving date. So if anything, this suggests that LTC moves with the market and doesn't necessarily have a mind of its own, and or supply demand hasn't really caught up with inflation on the network to really make a difference. So yes, decreased inflation issuance is good for any coin over the long term, but for LTC specifically, at 4% inflation, it really isn't enough to move the needle price-wise. If we look at the block times have mainly held to 2.5 minutes. Over the past month, block times went way up. Along with BTC, hash rate for LTC dropped dramatically. So that's why you're seeing block times skyrocket to 3 minutes. Really a multi-year high in block times as far as historically on the 7-day average, weekly average. So this will actually decrease inflation pretty significantly, at least in the near term, short term. All of that auto-corrects itself once difficulty adjusts, which it has because block times are now back to 2.5 minutes. Here's that hash rate and difficulty chart. You can see hash rate just tumbled super quick. So it took 6 months to gain hash rate and about 2 weeks to lose it all. So it's back to basically the January, April level. And that may or may not continue to rise depending on hash rate in China, electricity costs in China, geographic distribution of miners, that sort of thing. There isn't really a new script ASIC coming anytime soon. As far as I can tell, that's public. If you look at transaction counts and average transaction sizes, transaction counts went way up recently because of a blockchain game that was released using Litecoin. I don't really expect this to be long lasting. This will probably fade over time. So any of this transaction spikes are probably temporary, probably not going to last. But it was impressive in that it nearly mirrored the 2018 spike. And you can see there hasn't really been any effect on price whatsoever. No effect on, well, transaction sizes did drop, and that's kind of what you expect if transaction counts spike. So all this sort of makes sense. If you look at block sizes, they've continued to increase. Fees have not increased, which is good. That says there's adequate scaling measures for LTC. There isn't a massive amount of unconfirmed transactions or anything like that to sort of weigh down the block space, the fees. All in all, block space is still at around 0.5 megabytes on average. So there's still plenty of room. We're talking 2 to 4 megabytes with SegWit. So no real concern for reaching the theoretical block size limit here. Looking at active addresses in the fill, active addresses have continued to increase to multi-year highs. Basically only 2018 insanity was even close to the current levels. But all in all, it's still not enough to really impact price in a big way. Price just hasn't seen an impact from the rise in active addresses. If this continues at the current pace over multiple months into 2021, and then at some point it's going to kick in, that demand for LTC is going to make a difference. But right now it's just not enough. And NVT really is all over the place. It's an inverse metric of economic utility, this line here. It's really all over the place since 2018. So to me, it's just unusable. I just include it because of completeness sake, but really it doesn't really mean anything to me. MVRV, on the other hand, is another measure of on-chain activity versus actual market cap. And historically, highs and lows have been pretty predictive for highs and lows in price. We're about halfway there to the predicted high. So this is just one of those things to look at every now and then to see, is price bubble high territory? Is it ready for some massive bearish retracement or bullish retracement? And thus far, it's suggesting plenty of additional upside on the current bull rally. If you look at the Google trends for LTC, they're basically as flat as they can be. There's no real massive outside search interest for Litecoin. If you look at technicals, we have Bitfinex long shorts at the top here, RSI, VPVR, volume profile of the visible range. This is volume at specific price levels versus volume per day. And the 50 and the 200 EMA. If price is above the 200, I generally think of it as a litmus test for trend. So if it's above, it's bullish. If it's below, it's bearish. If the 50 is above the 200, that is bullish. Typically a good sign for a bullish entry. These crosses lose their signal strength if there have been multiple crosses in quick succession, as there have been since 2020. We've had 6 crosses in 11 months, so it's hard to take any of them individually seriously. Even still, it's above the 200. It's got a 50-200 bull cross. It's creeping above this VPVR level at 55. So if it can get above 70, if it can get above the recent local high, I think it has a pretty good shot at 3 digits, hitting this R1 at around 110. Looking at all this together, though, it's such a sideways mess. It's hard to really measure a trend here because there really hasn't been one since, 2019. Bull trend, bear trend, and then sideways since 2020. Longs and shorts are fairly long, relatively long, but overall they've just been flat since 2020. Nothing really to talk about here. Long spiked and then came way down. RSI not really showing any bull or bear divs here. Plenty of room for upside in the overbought territory. What I'd watch for is if we get a bearish divergence at the 3-digit mark, then there's probably going to be some mean reversion to the 200. This is months away at this point, but something to keep in mind. Looking at the cloud actually looks great. I do these articles once a month for these coins, and sometimes they surprise me that I haven't looked at this sooner, but this is the exact long setup you want to see. Put it in your bullish almanac for the exact sort of thing you're looking for when you're looking for long entries, because the cloud isn't yet bullish but is about to be. Everything else is bullish. Much like the 50 and the 200 crosses, these Kumo breakouts that happen in quick succession just amplify the lack of trend here. So although in a vacuum this looks really bullish, it is harder to take it seriously because there have been so many of them that have gone nowhere over the past year. Something I like to do that I didn't include in the article is just, if this is a ranging mess, just go to the next time frame up. So look at the 2-day. How does it look on the 2-day? How does the 50 and the 200 look on the 2-day? Really helps cut the noise from the signal in those cases. Then lastly, looking at LTC, BTC, man, it is just absolutely getting crushed. As somebody who bought LTC initially back in their journey and sometime in 2013, not that I have it anymore, but to see where this chart has gone and where it is now is kind of crazy. I'm sort of showing the consolidation here. There's clearly going to be some mean reversion. Will it get up to 88 at the VPVR, at the yearly pivot, at the 200 on the weekly? We'll see. I don't know. But the more this pushes down on weakening bearish momentum, the stronger the bounce is going to be eventually when it comes. You can see that when LTC does move against BTC, it's quick and unrelenting. It's been the case. So it loves to just bleed, and then there's just a rotation all at once. I fully expect that here. I fully expect this to actually retrace to 088. The question is how you play this. Do you just slowly accumulate over several weeks and hope that you're buying towards the bottom? Do you put bids down here in the hopes that any wick down will catch and you won't be holding it too long? I don't know. I think it could get much messier than it is here because BTC looks very strong here. So this is a tough one. I do think there's a play here, though. I do think there's a decent setup for the reversal trade back to the mean reversion. So overall, not too much of exciting things happening with LTC, either on-chain wise or technical wise, but there's some decent cases to see the USD side looking bullish on the cloud, looking bullish on the 50-200. to see LTC BTC just sold off into nothingness, into the abyss. I mean, just close to all-time lows at this point. So will LTC ever outperform BTC over the long term? No, but there's definitely a trade to be made here that the opportunity cost should be small because of the generally quick moves, quick spikes that LTC BTC does have. So this does look pretty good. Does look pretty good on the technical side.